Testing 1, 2, 3, and it looks like we're live. All right, we're back. So this is going to be the part 2 of our dock replacement of our iPod Classic. I had to stop the stream earlier today, just had some other things I had to take care of. But now we're going to revisit this one. And the last thing we did before I ended the stream was go ahead and remove the existing 30-pin connector off of the logic board. And what I noticed before I started the stream is the amount of vias that appear to have been ripped off. So you can see every single one of these copper circles you see here is actually a solder point, or a trace, I should say, that goes to the back side of the board and touches these resistors, capacitors, some diodes, it looks like. So this is a situation to where we can do one of two things. Both of them aren't fun, but we're going to try because the customer is concerned about data, and this board is paired to his hard drive. So we can't just simply replace the board, we need to repair the board. But of the two things, we can either run jumper wire from one side of the board directly to the other, and there's about 15 traces there, or instead, we can get these wily solder pads and try to rebuild the damaged vias and solder some new traces back onto the actual circuitry, the traces where they ripped off. So I'm going to try the latter, where we just expose some of the copper and apply some new solder to tin up the pads and put some new pads in their place. So this may take some time. I got about an hour time limit before I have an obligation to where I'm supposed to be tonight. So let's see if we can get this done. So I've gone ahead and preemptively exposed some of the traces here by taking a scalpel and exposing part of the vias, just kind of peeling back the fiberglass around here. So I think we're at a point now to where I can just go ahead and clean up the fiberglass that I've exposed and touch every single one of these vias with some solder. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's get some isopropyl alcohol. We're going to put it on a Q-tip so that we can just brush away part of the fiberglass. So there, when the alcohol is on the logic board, you can really see the traces, the vias, a lot better. And we'll just kind of let that evaporate. And I'm going to use my micro pencil for applying the new solder. And let's try to get this in focus for you all. And let's turn on our fume extractor now that the alcohol is pretty much evaporated. There we are. We're going to then take some flux and just kind of go over all of the missing pads. So now, we should be able to just grab a little bit of solder and our micro pencil and tin the exposed via. This right here is not a via directly. There's a via right there at the top. This is just a trace. So we're going to tin up part of that trace. Same thing here. Let's try to get some solder on this via. And the vias are on the surface level, but they're still just a little bit deep into the actual fiberglass, which is why I had to use a scalpel to expose part of the trace. There we are, so that side's tinned up. We only have 13 more to go. This is one of the more time-consuming repairs. If this wasn't a case of data recovery being important, I would definitely recommend just replacing the logic board. However, from past repairs, from my understanding, is that the logic board pairs itself to the hard drive. So if we were to get a new logic board, the first thing you would do with the hard drive is say it needs to be formatted. And the client says that he's never backed up his music, or he doesn't have access to the original music library, and we can't use a third-party program like iExplorer or Zenuity to extract the songs because the songs have to, it has to be extracted using the dock. And if the dock is damaged, we can't pull the data off of the hard drive. So this is going to be the only way that we can actually get the data back from the hard drive. I'm going to skip that one for a second and revisit that. I don't think I etched away enough fiberglass for that one via, so it looks like when I put my soldering iron on it, some of the fiberglass just melted. Actually, I think we're fine there now. Okay, let me look back at all these vias to make sure that they've been properly tinned up. And that looks to be the case. And this side, you can actually see where the dots or the vias are. They're still here, so I'm going to still have to put some wires. So basically, for every single one of these missing traces, we're going to have to run a jumper wire. So let me go ahead and clean up this area before we get some new flux on here. And again, we're just going to use a Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol. And we have a better image of all the exposed vias. And again, these vias are responsible for the dock to talk to components right here on the back side of the board. And without having the iPod schematics, I'm not sure which vias are truthfully necessary. So some of these might actually go to like debugging test points that aren't important. But unfortunately, I can't make that judgment call. All right, so what I'm going to do is just kind of start left to right and apply some new traces onto here. So let's go ahead and get some new flux. And as far as the traces go, I'm going to end up pulling some traces off of our pad here, or the Wiley pads. And there was one in particular, it was this size right here, that I'm going to use for rebuilding these traces. Because this is about the same size of the via. So for that, I'll get my scalpel and try to go underneath the pad to lift it up without damaging it. And now that I have it lifted up some, should be able to just pull it the rest of the way. And I'm just being gentle with it. Nope. That was a bad... I didn't have it fully pulled out of the trace, out of this laser etched sheet. Let's try that again. When they're this small, they're really hard to pull out. And I think this one's tried to do the same thing. So it's almost like it's not, either I'm not getting a good connection underneath it, or I'm sorry, a good, not getting a good piece underneath it, or this hasn't been fully etched out, or since it's smaller, it's just overall harder to grab. Okay, let's see if we can get that one. Third time, third try is a charm. That's trying to pull up on the side again, so I'll figure out a better method for pulling that out. I'm not too happy with how that looks. We can still use this, but I'm not happy with that. Let's see, what is this fighting? We may have to go one size larger. Let's try that. Yeah, see, that's coming up as I would expect. I just barely touched that and this whole entire part lift up. So I have a feeling that it's just not lasered out that well, laser etched that well on this small of a size. So we're going to work with this size of the traces. Okay. And actually, before we go any further, what I'm going to do is grab a board holder. It's exactly as the name entails. It holds the board in place, so it doesn't wiggle around as I am putting pressure on it with the soldering iron. Alright, so now that we have this in our board holder, let's start off with this first pad. Now, just to forewarn, this part of the stream is probably going to be really boring, because there's several traces here that are going to have to be repaired. And this might be just a little too big. It might be just the right size or a hair too big. Alright. First one is done. Many more to go. Let's go ahead and just cut off this extra piece. We won't need that. And then what I'll do after all these traces are applied is put some mask on here, which is just a resin that gets cured with UV light to really hold it in place. Alright, so let's grab one more. And I'm going to have to keep changing the focal point, the object zoom of this, just because this isn't in the board holder, so it is lower onto the desk. I guess this will be more of an ASMR stream than anything else. No, for those who are joining, how's your evening tonight? I hope it's going well. For those of you who are joining us, we are soldering between 15 to 20 different traces on this iPod Classic 30-pin connector that looks to have been ripped off. We've already done one, but we have several more to go. Okay. Number 2. Let's keep this going. And what I have to be mindful for is the more that I heat up this flux, the more it's going to become tacky. The problem with that is I'm going to have to clean that, but my traces aren't going to be put down all the way with mask yet. So if I end up cleaning this area and it's too tacky, I could actually run the risk of damaging my traces. So what I'll do is for every 3 traces, I will then clean my flux. I think that's going to be the best way to approach this. Alright, trace number 3. Let's do this. I am very happy these traces exist in the first place, these pre-made traces. Back when I was doing Nintendo Switch repair regularly, it was typically from other repair shops when all the traces were damaged. And what you would do is take a thin piece of wire and kind of make a coil out of it so you can make a new solder pad. And I don't know if my hands are just too shaky for that, or if there was a technique that I just wasn't doing right, but I was never good at that process. Yeah, that actually ripped off part of my trace there. So let's just go ahead and get rid of that. And I don't like how that actually moved that. In fact, this whole entire trace right here lifted up too, so I feel like it's not soldered down as much as it could be. Okay, that's better, and I just went ahead and took up that trace while I was at it. Now, since I've touched this 3 times, I'm going to clean this real quick with some acetone. Eat away the flux so it doesn't get overly tacky. And you can see that second trace right here, this part moved when I did that. Okay, let's go about this again. So, let's get a little bit more flux. Hopefully we can get this done within an hour. Switch back over, and I'm gonna try the smaller traces, but all the way on this right side, just in case there was an issue in the fabrication of this, because I had 3 back-to-back. I just did not want to come up. And truthfully, I like the size of this trace better than the one below. This seems like a more appropriate size for how close the, I think they call it the pitch, how close the pitch of the pins are. I might be wrong. If there's any electrical engineering viewers watching, please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, that came out a lot easier than if I tried to approach it from the other side. Okay. And either there's an optical illusion, or that is roughly the same size of the trace that I was putting down. Let's see. It's hard to tell because of the flux, but I think it actually is the same size. It looks pretty close. So it may not matter actually where I pulled the trace from on that sheet of traces. Oh, my soldering iron went to sleep. Let's turn that back on. Can't really solder with an iron that's not heated up all the way. Alright, that one went down fine. And let's see. So yeah, if I were to compare the size, if it is smaller, it is minuscule. It looks pretty much the exact same size to me. Alright, so let's remove that because we don't need that anymore. Now we get to solder onto a replacement, or onto our trace right there. Let's go back to our sheet. This is one of those repairs that I'm probably not charging enough for the amount of labor that's going to go into it. But I kind of have flat rate pricing when it comes to iPod Classic repairs. Or honestly, just logic board repairs in general. So for this one, I would definitely say that the customer is definitely getting the fair end of the deal on this one. Because I would say each trace takes me between 1 to 2 minutes to apply. It's probably going to take me a little bit longer. Okay. So this one's going to be a little tricky because I got to solder the tail of this trace. And I need to apply a little bit more solder. I don't feel comfortable with how much is there. It's not pretty, but it's a lot more than what was originally there. And since I don't have the via soldered onto this part of the pad, I'm going to go ahead and do our first round of masking. Let's clean it and then apply a little bit of mask here. Before we use acetone, let's use a little bit of alcohol. And see, I'm just kind of dabbing. I really don't want to pull in one particular direction because I might lift up, like right here, this trace. And let's switch to acetone now. I don't know, I just find that acetone cleans flux better than alcohol. The same stuff you use for nail polish remover, or it is nail polish remover. This can be found in your local beauty store or beauty section of your local convenience store. And so we have 4 of the traces made. And this one is trying to lift up more than I feel comfortable with. Okay, so now with those 4 down, let's go ahead and apply our first run of mask. And so for that, I'm actually going to put some of the mask on the tip of the scalpel, so just so I can apply it a little bit more accurately. And see, it looked like I put hardly anything on the scalpel to the naked eye, but underneath the microscope it definitely looks like a lot. So I'm just using the tweezers here to kind of paint it on. So if you haven't already, go ahead and brew a cup of tea, or since it's cold here, maybe some hot chocolate, because this one's going to take a minute to do. And just very meticulously trying to put mask down. No, go back. And now we should be able... I'm going to hold this one down as I hit it with some, the UV light. Actually, let me grab my UV protection goggles first, just so I don't cause any more damage to my already damaged eyes. Okay. And then this stuff cleans up very well also with acetone. Just like before, just gonna kind of dab it a little bit. So that should be enough mask for now, just to kind of hold it in place as we continue soldering some more traces. How many more do we have? I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this done within the hour appointment that I have, or the time frame that I gave myself, since I have somewhere I need to be this evening. So I'm just going to keep going until like 8:20. Let's do that. Alright, so like before, go ahead and add a little bit of flux right here. And let's get some more traces. Really wish there was a more efficient way of doing this. Okay, and so this is going to be the first one where the via is actually in the center. So we got to line this up as best as we can. Without touching any other trace. Any of the other existing pads that I've already soldered. Like this one that's trying to make its way over. You know what, actually? I'm going to do this backwards. I'm going to solder the via part directly to the flat end. Let's try that. We might have better results if we do that. And soldering iron went back to sleep. Let's turn that back on. Should hear a beep any second. There we go. And then what we're going to do is when we lay this down, we're going to solder directly onto the tail end of this trace. And for that, actually, let me get a little bit more solder so I can tin this up. That has already soldered on contact. Oh, and this really doesn't take a lot of heat to desolder this existing via. We don't want the tail to move around too much. Let's see, come on. We can do this. Okay. I actually melted some of the mask there, so that's kind of what's that black resin we see coming off. There we are, so it's one more pad. And just because I did burn some of the resin, let's go ahead and clean this area up again. Truthfully, when I started this stream, the part 1 earlier today, I didn't expect it to be this far complicated, this far gone. Yeah, that's not going anywhere, so that is good. Okay. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of flux on the tip of my tweezers. And just kind of touch that area. Make it a little bit more precise. Okay. This is the part of the stream where we would have some engaging chat discussion. Admittedly, from the day to day, I'm completely burnt out on topics. I know for a fact this is a boring stream, so I appreciate you who are all watching right now. It's hard to believe that it's already the end of 2023. And with that, there's also the end of the fiscal year, which starts from, transitions me from being a board repair technician to more of a admin, having to take care of taxes and things like that. And it's just interesting to think that we are already at that point of the year. But it is nice. I'm looking forward to a new year. Welcome 2024 and bracing arms. Got a couple of exciting adventures I'm going to try to do in 2024. And I can't wait to actually start talking about it a little bit more. Aw, we lost a trace. I'm gonna have to redo that one. Take a coffee break first, bro. Lots of traces will work on it. It's true. Steadying hands. Keep going, you're doing good. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so I think what happened here was some of the mask, when I melted it, it created a mask barrier between the actual via and the trace I was trying to put on there. So I'm going to have to retin this up. I appreciate your words of encouragement. I can't promise that I'm going to have this completed tonight. This is probably going to be a 3-parter, and then I'll just end up editing it into one video. A quick 10-minute video on how this repair is done. Keep soldering. Warm regards from Indonesia. That's awesome. I appreciate you watching the stream. Okay, that should be good for the next pad. But yes, 2024, I am genuinely looking forward to. Have a couple irons in the fire right now. Have some endeavors that we're going to start doing in 2024. And once I finalize some information on that, I'll be more than happy to share you guys that information. Till then, board repair. I hope 2023 has been a good year to all of you. Okay, so this one's going to be a little tricky because I'm going to have to solder without touching the left or the right pad. Okay, and I think we did that. Oh, no. Oh, in the process, I actually lifted up a couple of these pads here, which I guess isn't the end of the world because this wasn't directly going to a via. I was just giving more surface area for our 30-pin connection. But you can see just by barely touching this connection, I'm just going to lift it up. It's not a good connection anymore. Same thing there. It was just one pad. One singular pad. Okay. Okay, let's clean that up before we go on to the next one. This one is going to be fighting me, I feel like, for a while. I might have to apply a little bit more mask onto it. And I think I'll go ahead and do that before we move on to the next three. I think that's going to be the trick, is doing 3 at a time. It's way too much mask. Let me thin that down some. And I'm just going to spread this across all of this. And what we're going to do is expose. We're going to cover it and then we're going to expose it by scraping it away with our scalpel. Okay. And to thin it up, I'm going to take a Q-tip and just dab that right there. And that's going to, in a sense, wick up some of the existing mask, because I don't want to have too much or else it's not going to cure. Let's start with that. Yep, let's clear, let's cure these pads with the UV light. And see if now we can clean up the existing resin with some acetone. That we can. And then what we'll do is try to very gently expose the trace. That way, when we solder this down, we have a piece of copper we can solder onto. And I still could use a little bit more mask right there, or some UV light. Okay, I think that one's good. Now I just need to very gently expose the copper. That should be enough for the trace on the 30 pin connection that we're going to put down. Alright, 6 done. I feel like this needs a little bit more solder as well. Alright, now that that's tinned up, let's get another pad. Eight to go. Where's your coffee? No coffee for me tonight. It's 8 p.m. where I'm at. If I have coffee tonight, I will just not sleep. This is the time of evening where we transfer to tea or beer, but that will be a later situation. And that one went along a lot easier than any of the other ones so far. And truthfully, the one next to it, I'm going to skip. I think that one's going to be fine enough for us to solder our 30-pin connection onto. So let's go to the one after that, which, again, may be okay. I'll make it a slightly bigger pad right there. Yeah, these traces are just a little bit too big, but I think they're gonna get the job done. Just as long as I make sure that they don't touch the other soldered on traces, I think we'll be fine. Lay that down. But if I had a trace that was any smaller than this, I probably wouldn't be able to hold it down with my tweezer, so maybe this is the perfect size. And I feel like this is ground. It's taking a little bit longer to heat up. And we can actually verify that. Let's get our multimeter. Touch a ground point here. Touch here. Nope, that is not ground. Interesting. Unless I didn't touch a ground point. Let's try that again. No, that's correct. That is not ground. Okay. Well, it's soldered. Alright. And since we skipped that middle pad, we have 3 pads down. We are good to apply some mask. Again, we're going to use a little bit of acetone and just kind of dab this area. Really don't want to brush across and potentially snag a part of my trace. And let's get some more mask. I'm going to put it on the tip of my scalpel. That looks like that's way too much, so let's thin that down. And even after thinning it down, it still looks like too much. Thanks for joining us, Pedro. Good to see you tonight. Hello, gents. Love the iPod Classic and still have a working one. They're great when they work. They are nice. Where I'm located is very close to the mountains. Good old Appalachia, however you guys want to pronounce it. And there's several times where people will go hiking and not have cell service for playing their music. And I know you can download your music beforehand with Apple Music and Spotify, but there's something about an iPod Classic that just works so much better. And the battery life is a lot longer too. And from what I've heard from audio enthusiasts, the DAC on there, I think that stands for Digital Audio Codec, is just so much better than that of an iPhone, surprisingly. The chrome back is sexy. I do like the chrome finish. I used to own an iPod Touch, the 4th generation. That one still had a nice chrome finish on it too. Alright, let's try that from another side. Try not to look directly into that light. And just a dab of acetone that cleans right up. So now, like before, we're going to take the flat end of our scalpel and try to expose some of the copper here. I want to do it carefully because I don't want to bend any of the trace. Just exposing it enough to where when we put the 30-pin connection down, we have some copper that we can solder onto. So this time I just used a little bit of alcohol to try to clean up away any of the excess resin. Let's see if we can evaporate that with a little reworkstation. Looks good. All right. Let's see how many more of these we have left. So these two are still fine, so we can skip those for now. That leaves us, we have one right here, one via. See, we may be okay without having this here. In fact, I'll actually float on the 30-pin connection here in a second. But let's double check. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 more to go. And we have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we've done 7 so far. Nope, sorry, 8. We've done 8, so we are almost halfway done. Let me grab the 30-pin connection real quick. This will be the replacement one we put on this board, and I want to see how far out this goes. Ah, that looks good. Yep, so I should be able to solder right here is where it's going to be tricky, so I do need to put some traces here. Because even if I push this all the way to the edge, it's not touching it. So I do need to apply some more traces there. So actually, if we consider that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That gives us 13 more that we need to do. Okay, well, let's just keep trucking along. It's 8:11 right now. I know for a fact with how long it's taking me, this one's not going to be completed tonight. Because I have to get out of here in like the next 10 to 20 minutes. So there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this tonight. That's a lot of trace repair. Yes, it is. And it's for data recovery, and I'm waiting for someone in the chat to tell me, Esteban, you're actually dumb. Don't you know that you can replace the logic board and still use the same hard drive and everything's just going to work? I really want someone to prove me wrong, or tell me I'm wrong. Honestly, that would give me so much more peace of mind that I could just offer a logic board replacement instead of suggesting it to the customer, not knowing that that's going to keep their data. We end up ordering it, shows up, and to surprise, the hard drive is going to have to be paired, which erases all the data, which defeats the purpose of getting a new logic board. So if anyone knows if replacing the logic board maintains the data, I would be very grateful for that information. Until then, I'm just going to keep soldering new traces. Logic board replacement is boring too. I guess. I would rather do a logic board replacement personally, but if it is more entertaining to watch, to do trace repair, then I'm happy to keep doing it. Dank Pods. I know of the YouTube channel. Are you saying that they may know this information? Truthfully, I really don't know much about Dank Pods. I don't know. I'm bad when it comes to other YouTubers. I'm more of just a repair technician that shows people what happens behind the scenes. YouTube is not how I make my money. Fixing 30-pin iPod classics is how I pay my employees and rent and power and unemployment insurance. All that. But I've heard of Dank Pods. I don't know much about his content other than it's iPods. I think my coworker, my employee, had told me about him before. Alright, that one's good. Pedro says, me either, but he knows everything about iPods from my understanding. Hey, this is good and interesting repair. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Alright, that's another trace. Hopefully it's in focus for you guys. Alright, let's move on to another one. In fact, actually, should probably tin it up some, because we have the via in the center nice and tinned up, but we don't have this part right here tinned up. There we go. Better. Yes. If someone were to show DankPods this video, I'm sure he'd be laughing. They would be laughing. The content creator would be laughing. Come on. I have so much flux on my tweezers that it's just not wanting to come off. Yeah, I'm not going to say that. Can't badmouth someone you don't know. There's nothing to badmouth. Okay, so since we have a via right here, I'm actually going to do this backwards. Pedro's trying to get me in trouble. He's trying to start some sort of YouTube feud. Alright, let's bring this trace down to the via. There we are. Try to line that up. I'm sure he has a good sense of humor too. Okay. Make sure our iron is turned on. I don't know. I don't really watch too many people anymore on YouTube for repairs. I was really big into Rossman when he was doing more videos back before 2020. I think even back before 2019. But nowadays I really don't have the time to actually sit down and watch other board repair technicians. Which I feel bad because I'm in a Discord with several of them. I know one of my colleagues, James Gill, is going to be starting a YouTube channel for his repair business. More Than a Fix, based out of California. So I'm kind of excited to that, see what he puts out. He's a very smart man. He was actually giving me some advice on a better quality camera earlier today. I might have to look into that, because right now I'm just using some inexpensive Logitech cameras. And for some reason, Logitech cameras went up, well, I shouldn't say for some reason, but Logitech cameras went up in price immensely in 2020 because everyone was working remotely and doing Zoom and Teams, all that stuff. So it just really made supply and demand affect the webcam market, which I bought these webcams, I think maybe $40 at the time, and when I bought another set to put in my home office, they doubled in price. Because inflation. Well, not inflation, sorry. Supply and demand. Pedro says not many people are doing them anymore. I think he's referring to the board repair streams. Board repairs are just getting more intense, more complicated. You know, the T2s and the M1s, they are complicated devices. And I've actually met or known several technicians that since 2020 they have quit doing board repair, or they sold their business, or they adapted to doing something else, because honestly I feel like if you can do logic board repair, you can probably do something else that's a little bit more meaningful for society. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing board repair, but I feel like with how complicated it's gotten, I might as well just go back to school for electrical engineering and do something a little bit more meaningful. Also, I've been doing repair since 2013. I'm in my 30s now. I spent my entire 20s doing repair. And it started with phone repair and kind of adapted from there. But I'm to a point to where I'm not bored, but I feel like there's another step to go from here. What Discord are you in? Well, I am part of what used to be the Rossman group Discord, which is now the, I think, Repair All Things, Fix All Things. I forget the channel, honestly. I'm pretty bad about it. It's what the Rossman group turned into before Rossman, or after Rossman went to Matrix, which I have not joined. I've just been too busy to have to switch over to a new platform. So I think it's called Fix All Things. But I'm also in Shiny Computers Discord, which is kind of a private Discord of other business owners and repair technicians. Chris from Shiny Computers, he created the Discord. So me and a couple other technicians are in that group, and we just talk about random stuff. Some of it useful, a lot of it random, a lot of random stuff. Rossman is more of a politician now, but that's fine too. Cryface. Oh, I'm sorry. I would imagine after him doing it for as long as he has and having to move his business to a completely different state, and then of course being really big into the right to repair movement, that unfortunately forces you to become very political about your industry. Very jaded too. I'm in South Carolina, and I couldn't imagine having to just uproot my business in my entire life to, let's say, South Dakota, the other South one, SC to SD. That sounds very stressful. I have a small staff compared to Rossman. Very small. Like, I have 3 people working with me, and one of them is a part-timer. So I have 2 like full-time technicians. One of them's a store manager, and she's great. They're both great. They're both really great technicians. But if I had to move to South Dakota, hypothetically, they're not going with me. I guarantee you they are not going with me. They have established their families here, their lives, and there's just no way in hell they're going to uproot their life for me. So to be able, or being almost forced per se, to move to a completely different state because the state that you're in is just not good for your business, and having to find new staff and create a whole new life, I would imagine that changes a person. The furthest I've ever moved away from my home was 3.5 hours away. And that was okay. I mean, whenever I needed to drive back home for family or if there was an emergency, it was just a 3-hour drive. It wasn't a plane flight. But even then, if something were to happen to my business here and I had to move back 3 hours away, that I don't think my current employees would follow me even 3 hours. So that just sounds like a very stressful situation. He's a tough person. I commend him for being able to do that. Chris is a great guy. Chris is very smart. Chris is too smart. And Chris has great quality control and expectations. He's just all around a great guy. I've had many conversations with Chris. And unfortunately, Chris has just been handed really bad hands in life, but also his business. And he unfortunately was almost forced to close his business down as well up in Virginia. And he's done. He's completely done. He just finished auctioning off all of his stuff at Shiny Computers. I'm probably going to have to finish up here soon. That's the wife calling. Let me try to get a couple more. Let me get 2 more traces. Louisiana had a full of his technicians relocate to Texas, but not all. Louis, not Louisiana. Yes. Yeah, I know he had a couple of people move with him, but like, alright, let's try to get this on here. But Paul, I know Paul stayed behind and opened up his own business. It's like, that's gotta be hard, man. Putting that many years into one location, well, it was another location, but just putting that many years into something and then having to uproot somewhere else. I would imagine that's difficult. Okay, so I have that trace on that via. Now what I'm trying to do is just apply a little bit more solder to the bottom side right there, kind of in that U shape. I know there's a lot of technicians in the Facebook board repair group. I'm really bad about social media though, like Facebook in general, so I'm never on there, so I never see anything. Or I should say when I get on there, I never really see anything. I don't have Facebook installed on my phone. It's too much of a distraction, so I only have it on my work computer, and that's usually for posting things for the business here. But the, I've been meaning to check out the Rossmann Matrix, the Rossmann Repair Group Matrix, just to see who's there, and also just the quality, I guess you could say, of discussions. It's getting harder and harder to talk to people about this type of repair. I mean, I remember back in 2019, the Rossmann Group Discord was flourishing with a lot of repair conversations and just technicians. It was a good time, in my opinion. And then what I call the March that lasted forever, March of 2020, when it affected the United States the most, in my opinion. That's when things got crazy. And it was just really hard to keep up with people. It was really hard to keep up with the demand with business. I'm very fortunate, since we were considered essential, we didn't have to shut down. Unlike a couple of my friends who own salons and restaurants, they unfortunately either lost their business or had to temporarily shut down. We fortunately weren't affected in that way, but man, that was a hard time, and I think a lot of people sank or swim when it came to the repair industry. Either they shut down their business because it was too much, or they did what me and my wife did and spent the night at your shop trying to make sure you met deadlines and get things done, and I like to think that we flourished from that. But since then, like, that Discord completely changed. I'm not sure about the Facebook group because I've never really been active on the board repair Facebook group, but definitely not the same quality per se that it used to be back in the day. Less board repair streams because I think less people had time to do them. But I don't know if we're going to see a resurgence in board repair content because admittedly it is getting more difficult. Independent repairman without Facebook. I know a lot of people some people get their business from Facebook, but yeah, but with the storefront and just being in business for 7 years, the Google reviews that we've built up, the reputation, the word of mouth, we really don't need to be on social media, although I need to be more active on it, just for search engine optimization reasons. It's kind of like, I'm not going to name people because I don't want people to be mad at me, but there are other repair businesses that I follow on some social medias, and they're very similar to me, where they just don't really post. And I would imagine they're just too busy, or they haven't hired anyone to take care of their social media management. And I think you can still be a successful business owner without being superly active on Facebook. The one thing that bothers me, though, personally, is when you don't update your website. And my website hasn't been updated in 2 years. And I am part of the problem. All my prices are accurate, but it looks like that I stopped servicing devices up to 2017, which is not the case. I need to put that we service pretty much everything, except for the Apple Watch. We don't do the Apple Watch anymore. Not really a cost-effective, economic repair. Not really a viable repair. Google reviews get me 95% of my work. I'm sure. If you're reputable and you have reviews that are a lot better than just like a 5-star rating, or they just say like, Pedro was nice, and then just leave it at that. If you actually have quality reviews over quantity reviews, and it doesn't say something like, did the repair quick, it says a lot about your character. If you have very short reviews, it almost looks like you paid for your reviews, or you gave someone a discount for leaving you a 5-star review. And I'm not going to say anyone in my neighborhood, but there's several businesses in my area that have 3 times, 4 times, some even 5 times the amount of reviews I have, and I promise I'm not salty. But if you read the content of the reviews, they're nothing burgers. They're very short one-offs. So-and-so helped me, it was great. Repair done 15 minutes, it was good. You can tell the people in the same industry as me, in my same area, they are giving people discounted repairs for leaving them reviews because they're not quality reviews. They don't really tell you anything about the person's experience. I don't like those. I'm very grateful for the reviews we do have. The majority of our customers, they leave us sentences to paragraphs of their experience with us. And it doesn't look like a fake review, even though Yelp, although I refuse to pay them, they keep saying all of my Yelp reviews are fake and put them in the not recommended, which last I checked, 87% of my reviews on Yelp are in the not recommended because I don't pay for Yelp. But the Google reviews are a lot higher. There's a lot more reviews being shown. And if you just glance at the reviews compared to my competitor reviews, you can see where someone went out of their way because they wanted to leave a review versus someone who's just trying to get 10% off on a repair. But reviews are very important. Pedro says 117 5-star reviews, and they're all legit. Yes. 117 5-star legitimate reviews look so much better than 4,000 suspicious-looking reviews that just have like a thumbs up and just says a great rating, something that's like 3 words. It really says a lot about your business. But I could rant on forever about that, so I'll try not to. My employees get enough of me talking about that, although they feel the exact same way. Okay, let's see what that looks like now with the 30-pin connection. Yeah, so you can see we have a little bit of wire there, a little bit of the trace. It's going to be able to solder. Let's put a little bit mask down. My wife did call me probably about 5-10 minutes ago, so once I get the mask... Wait, what am I... It's late, guys. I completely just went off into a tangent. I wasn't even paying attention that I was putting the mask on there. I just went into full autopilot mode. I thought that I hadn't done that yet. So let me see how many traces we have left. Says suspect reviews stick out like a sore thumb. At least I think so. That's when I'm looking into a place of service for, let's say, like my vehicle. If I need something intense that I can't do, like a head gasket repair, I definitely read the substance of the reviews. All right, what are we at right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So was that only 4, or did I skip something else? Yeah. Oh my gosh. It took me 20 minutes to do 4, so that's about a trace every 5 minutes if we were to equal that out. And if we have 9 left, that's going to be another 45 minutes that we're going to be doing these traces. So, and I don't have that time because I have somewhere I need to be. So yeah, this is going to be a 3-parter. I have yeah, both of my employees are working tomorrow, so I should be able to find some time to wedge this in. But this is what we have so far. So, it's not pretty, but it's functional. So we're over the halfway mark. We got like 45% more left to go. But I think that's a good stopping point for tonight. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this here, and the saga continues. This is going to be a trilogy situation, and we'll get the extra 9 traces soldered on there, and hopefully by the end of tomorrow, we will then have the new 30-pin connection soldered onto the logic board, and it's just going to work. As Tom Howard from Bethesda says, it just works. Anyways, that's it for tonight. Thank you for letting me rant while I was just blindly doing this repair, mindlessly doing this repair. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much yeah, just thank you. Have a good one, guys. Bye.